Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I own an independent paper crafting business showcasing products from Stampin' Up. I made this little Easter card with products from Stampin' Up. I sell these products and also a few items to make crafting more convenient. I have the free detailed directions for this project on my website. You'll be able to click the links for the products that you would like to be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up. You'll see where to find all of that at the end of this video, so don't worry about taking notes. It's time to put stamps, ink, and paper together. I wanted to make an Easter card. Stampin' Up! Has several specifically Easter stamp sets available. I have timeless tulips, but I used this last year. In the current mini catalog, there's Springtime Joy and Gift of Hope. These are both lovely Easter sets, and I wish I had He Lives. So I grabbed Itty Bitty Greetings, and Itty Bitty Greetings has something for just about every holiday. It does have a stamp that says Easter Blessings, and I searched for a bunny using my Evernote notebook, and I found Wildly Happy, and I like this. I used the Stitched Rectangles dies and the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and this lovely petal pink striped organdy ribbon, the gray granite and petal pink Stampin' Blends, an envelope, a piece of basic white cardstock, and I used the designer series paper from In Good Taste. I have a piece that's large enough for my die, that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. I have some 1/2-inch strips of the same designer series paper. This has an intentionally uneven coloring, and you want it a little bit different from your background. I have a piece of petal pink that's 4 by 5 1/4, a piece of basic white that's the same size, and my card base is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. And I'm using the Settles embossing folder. I brought my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine in, and I'm going to emboss the 4 by 5 1/4 petal pink in the Settle embossing folder. I bought this Settle embossing folder before we came out with the 3D embossing folders. This was called Dynamic. And this is the Seashells 3D embossing folder. I think you might be able to see that the 3D newer embossing folder is thinner than the dynamic embossing folder, and you have to use them in your machine differently. If you have the dynamic embossing folder, here's how you need to use it. You need the platform. You do not need the number 2 die cutting plate. This gray plate is for embossing, but you cannot use it with the dynamic embossing folders. You're going to put your cardstock in the dynamic. This is the old, thicker style folder, and 1 clear cutting plate on top, and roll that through. If you use this embossing plate, it won't go through. It'll be too thick, and you'll say, oh, what's wrong? Well, anytime that it doesn't go through fairly easily, look, because there might be something wrong. And I just love this Settle pattern. I want to do some stamping. I'm going to stamp my bunnies near the bottom. Stampin' Up! Recommends that you use the Memento ink because it's a water-based stamp pad, but so are all of our classic ink pads. So you can use that with the Stampin' Blends. And I'm going to color in the blends with the light petal pink for the bunny's nose and inside the ears. And then the light gray granite to color the rest of the bunny. And I just need to be careful. Oh, there's a little bit of that bunny's nose showing. I don't think I colored it. Let me take care of that in a second. You don't really have to be careful with this layer of the coloring. But let me get that bunny's nose. And I'm kind of scribbling in a little bit. And then I'm using the bullet tip, or the finer tip, around the edge of the ear, around the edge of the head, and around the outside of the body. So anytime you want something to look rounded, you're going to be coloring the outside edge. And then a little bit for the back ear. I want to round the chin of the bunnies and across the bottom. And highlight the feet. And this bunny's in the back, so we'll come up around there. Then we're coming back in with the lighter gray granite, and we're going to circle this around. Think of it as stirring these inks together to blend it. Now when it's wet, it will be a little bit darker. So I'm stirring in that darker ink. And after I've gone right next to that darker ink, I kind of keep stirring as I get farther away from it. Most of the stirring should be right on the edge of that line, the darker line that you drew. As this ink dries, you may want to come back and do a little bit more coloring. We are going to do some die cutting, so I'm adding back my number 2 plate for die cutting, and my cut up plate, and my bunnies. I have the rectangle stitched tagger and the Stitch So Sweetly tagger, and I wanted to use this die, but I wanted it to have a flat bottom on it. So this is the number 8 Stitch So Sweetly. And then I need a rectangle that's as big as that one. So I'll use the number 5. And And so that's this one. And really I'm just using this as a straight bottom here. And I want those bunnies to be right sitting on the very edge of that. And I'll top that with my clear plate, my number 3. And I love this machine. It seems to have fewer pops and cracks and always cuts on the first time through. I'm going to be using the number 1 Stitch So Sweetly die. And I'm going to use that to cut my designer series paper. And then I'm going to use that number 8 Stitch So Sweetly. Ideally, we want the stitching to line up across there. So you might want to pull in some retired washi tape or maybe some low tack painter's tape and cover that up. And let's see how closely I got my stitching lines. I tore my little bunny piece the first time on this video, and the second time I realized that when you get the die in the right place, you can actually feel those little stitching lines setting into place. And I was careful to put the washi tape onto my pants a couple of times so it didn't tear, and also put the washi on the outside part. And I got a perfect cut this time. I don't think I had my Versamark out, my white Stampin' Emboss powder, and my heat tool out. I have an old embossing buddy, which I'm rubbing on here. If you have one, use it. If you don't have one, it's probably helpful to use a used dryer sheet. And I've got a piece of scratch paper here. And I'm going to stamp Easter Blessings in the upper right corner, as far up as I can go. But I know you can't see anything from there. But I'm going to dust it with the white embossing powder and flick off the extra. This all goes back in the tub. You use the tiniest little bit of embossing powder. When you use the heat tool, it actually melts the powder. It turns white and shiny and moves from a powder to a more solid image. And I love embossing. My large piece of white is just going on the inside of the card. I didn't plan to stamp on this one. You could stamp with some flowers. You could just leave it blank like I'm doing. I was thinking that May God Bless You and Keep You would work on the inside of this card. Or Forever and Always might also work. I'm putting some adhesive on the back of the embossed layer, and this ribbon is just going to go across about an inch from the top. And it's just going straight across, no bows, no knot, no frills. I was going for an overall subtle look for this whole card. It's soft and subtle. So this just goes on the front. And then this layer is going on. And I was going to have this going at the ribbon, but I think I need to go above that. And then I wanted to put my very subtle cross on here. I want to put the shorter layer on first. I have this one on just for placement. And so I want to have this be here. On my sample card, I actually cut out the bottom with the die, and I think that adds too much complication and for not a lot of payoff. So I'm just putting this here, and before I stick it down, I want to be sure it's not going to cover up my Easter blessings. It doesn't. So we'll just put that there. Add some Stampin' Dimensionals to my bunnies. And my bunnies will go on the bottom right. Like, Happy Easter. Here is the web address for this project, where you'll find the free detailed directions and links for the products I used. Just click the links and you'll be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up! Also on my website, you'll find a shop button. Under shop, you'll find products from Bev, shopping strategies, frequent shopper points, a link to my online store at Stampin' Up! When you click products from Bev, you'll find information about sharing my current products notebook in Evernote and taggers. I started making taggers when all of those layering shapes came out, and it was so hard for me to figure out which one I used and how to tell somebody else which one I used. So I made taggers. Each tagger has the name of the dies, the item number, how many in the set, and each tagger has the size of that shape. I also sell my cardstock sampler, fine tip glue pen replacement tips, and large and small reclosable bags that I use for designer series paper, both the 6x6 and the 12x12. And I have a link for my friend's bow maker. Under inspiration, you can scroll my projects, look at the latest post, find out about the basics, which I've designed especially for new stampers, and techie tips. Under getting organized, you'll find links to stamp case slips, product labels, large labels, case inserts, ink refill cases, lots of coloring tools, a stamp pad storage solution for practically no money, catalog tabs, a quick reference, and a wish list with the catalog index, directions for my basic toolkit to go and my compact desktop toolbox. I have so many people looking for my Evernote current products notebook that I have a new tab just for that. You can find out how to share my searchable catalog. You can go to SIP Together and you can find out how to join my team so that you can either save money or make money. Thank you for stopping by. Talk to you soon.